For a long time, I thought Horrid Henry was just a straightforward kids show. Henry causes problems, his parents get mad, and Perfect Peter looks better by comparison. And the cycle repeats. And when you're a kid, that's all it needs to be. But rewatching it now as an adult, it gets somewhat weird. The show hasn't changed, but you have. Now I finally noticed the things I didn't have language for as a kid, like how everyone reacts to their problems, the way everywhere feels tense before anything even happens. And once you notice that kind of detail, it feels really uncomfortable. Which, unfortunately, is why the show sticks with so many people. It just hits close to home. So when I put Horrid Henry tried to warn you in the title, I don't mean they were preaching. If anything, the show gives one of the grayest lessons a kid's cartoon can give. Instead, they show you something that only looks simple when you're young, while they're actually trying to warn you about life. The easiest way to understand what Horrid Henry tried to show us is to watch what happens before any conflict happens. Because in a lot of episodes, the conflict doesn't always start with Henry misbehaving, but it always starts with the assumption that he's about to. You can see that crystal clear in Perfect Peter's horrid day. So one night at dinner, Peter basically hits this quiet breaking point. He gets really jealous of Henry because Henry gets to hog all the attention from their parents, even though the attention is in the form of scolding. But Peter doesn't care or understand it yet. He just knows that Henry gets the attention and Peter doesn't.
It doesn't matter how perfect I am, nobody notices. But everyone notices how horrid Henry is. It's not fair.
So he decides, fine. If being good doesn't work, I'll try being horrid. Then the next morning, Peter starts doing all the Henry stuff. He didn't make his bed, put the dirty clothes in the hallway, and even goes as far as spraying Henry with the water hose, thus ruining the garden. And when Dad walks in and sees the mess, guess who gets accused right away?
Henry!
It was Peter's fault. He sprayed me.
Don't tell lies, Henry.
I mean, look, first suspicion, sure, I get it. Henry did act up yesterday, so Dad jumping to Henry isn't shocking. What's shocking, however, is what happens after. Because Peter actually admits he did it, and the answer is still basically, yeah, well, Henry should have moved.
It's true. I sprayed him.
Well, Henry, you should have got out of the way when Peter was watering the flowers.
It's ridiculous, to say the least. Henry will be guilty no matter how much proof lies before their eyes. Like, the conclusion is already picked. Everyone's just arguing about the details. Another good example for this labeling is the episode Horrid Henry Takes the Biscuit. After having some biscuit mess in the kitchen, Henry and Peter are cleaning up the crumbs on the floor. And while doing that, it's about time for some banter, right? That's what siblings do.
Oh, yes, I do. I always do as I'm told. That's why I've got 10 goodest gold badges this week, and you've got... Oh, who cares?
Henry can't even say a harmless banter to his brother. Nothing is neutral in this household. Once you get Horrid as your middle name, you don't get the benefit of being a normal kid, because Mom is already bracing for impact and deciding someone has to be the scapegoat. Now, this is the first clue something you as a kid wouldn't catch, but now as an adult do. The real punishment for Henry is not all the scolding he had. It's that Henry has to walk into every situation already guilty before he even says a word. And after a while, you can see him adjust to that. Because if you know people who are going to assume the worst anyways, you stop wasting energy trying to sound innocent. You start doing the one thing you can actually control. The chaos. If you're gonna get treated like the problem, you might as well be the one driving the problem. At least then, it's your choice. At least then, it's not you sitting there watching people decide your story for you. Labeling is really dangerous for kids because it gives them the understanding that people will only accept certain things from you. And once Henry believes that, it's almost impossible for him to earn a new version of himself. And yeah, Henry does plenty wrong. He's not some innocent angel being framed by the universe. But these episodes make something painfully clear. A lot of the blame starts before Henry even makes a choice, because everyone around him already made theirs. And once that becomes the normal atmosphere in the family, the next pattern is almost inevitable. Because after the label comes the reflex, which is even worse. Henry isn't exactly the most diligent kid in the world, and with the amount of trouble he makes, he deserves some scolding for it. However, depending on how you scold someone like Henry, the results might be worse than you actually think. If you looked at how Mom and Dad's response to Henry, it's rarely a constructive conversation, to say the least. Every time something goes wrong, they get annoyed quickly, and before they even reach the what happened part, there's already a punishment being handed out.
Past 4 in the morning, now go and get dressed.
But don't be horrid, Henry. Put your things away, Henry.
All right then, you can go in your pajamas.
Henry, inside at once!
And that's why episodes like Horrid Henry Runs Away is arguably one of the most disturbing stories of the series. One day, Henry gets fed up and decides he's gonna run away and live this dramatic new life somewhere far away.
I'm running away! Tonight.
Cool. Where to?
Oh, you know, Africa, probably.
And of course, he only got as far as Margaret Treehouse because it's Horrid Henry, not Into the Wild. But the fact that Henry's big move to move out of his home doesn't come out of nowhere. That's a kid who's learned that talking doesn't give him any credit whatsoever. So making a big move feels like the only way to get him some respect in the house. Although, Mom and Dad do kinda express genuine fear and emotion when Peter informs them that Henry decided to run away. So, when Mom and Dad find him in the kitchen, that's the moment where you expect the tone to change, right? Like, maybe ask your kid why did he even think to run away in the first place? No! They just straight up berated him again.
How could you be so horrid, Henry?
This time, you're in big trouble.
They just snap right back into the same usual punishment first, understanding later, if it even shows up at all. We're starting to understand that Mom and Dad's reactions to every one of Henry's problems is just some kind of reflex to handle Henry. I mean, you see it everywhere, even in smaller, more comedy episodes like Horrid Henry Tricks the Tooth Fairy. Because the premise is ridiculous, but it's also kind of heartbreaking. Henry eats an insane amount of sweets to force a tooth to fall out. It's gross, it's dumb, it's very Henry. But he's only doing such an extreme thing because he wants a pound from a tooth fairy. And Mom and Dad's response is basically the same as always. Ban the sweets, tell him what to eat instead, move on.
No sweets for a month. What? No! Mom, you can't do that! Dad, tell Mum she can't do that!
I'd make it 2 months.
Yeah, they never really had a conversation to maybe try to give Henry some understanding. Nope, just the usual household language, rules and consequences. Which is the point, because when discipline becomes the only language in a house, kids won't stop having feelings, they just won't talk about it at all. Or worse, they just start thinking about what will work in the house. So Henry gets sneakier, or louder, or more dramatic just to express his emotions. And to be fair, I don't even think the show is saying the parents are outright villains. Half the time they just look tired, like they're trying to keep the day from collapsing and Henry is the loudest thing in the room, so they just try to mitigate him. But when adults are exhausted, they often reach for shortcuts. And in this family, the biggest shortcut is always the same. Peter. Because the easiest thing in the world is to point at the better kid and say, why can't you be more like him? And this is where I saw things as an adult I would never have seen as a kid. Peter is more of a comparison tool than a little brother. He's the living, breathing example adults can point at when they're frustrated, like, see, it's possible to be good, why can't you do that? Even if nobody says it out loud, the house still runs on that comparison. And Horrid Henry Minds His Manners is such a perfect example of how that works, because the whole episode is basically built on one idea. Peter belongs in the good kid world, Henry doesn't. One day, 2 invitations show up. Peter gets invited onto Manners with Maggie, a neat, polite little show where you sit up straight, say please, and act like you were born holding a napkin. Meanwhile, Henry gets invited onto Gross Out, a loud, messy show where the entire point is being disgusting. Even the invitations are like, yeah, we already know which box you two go in. But then the mix-up happens. They swap shows, so Peter walks onto Gross Out and immediately gets ambushed by the goo cannons. He's panicking, he's trying to keep clean, he's doing the whole this is not proper meltdown. And the show doesn't care. It's not built for his personality. Meanwhile, Henry ends up on the Manners set, and he's not even doing anything evil, he's just being Henry. He wipes his nose with his sleeve, he talks too blunt, he doesn't follow Maggie's little scripted politeness routine, and Maggie can't take it. She literally breaks. She starts yelling, get dragged off the set, and the show gets replaced. There's a whole lot of slapstick in this episode, but the subtext is kind of brutal. Henry just didn't fit the shape of what the world calls good or proper. Meanwhile, Peter keeps getting rewarded for fitting the shape adults already like. And then you look back at Peter and realize, okay, what does this do to him? Because if Peter grows up being rewarded for fitting the shape, he's going to start believing that the shape is power. And that's why episodes like Perfect Peter's Revenge feels kinda tragic in a way. It starts with Henry basically telling Peter he isn't bad enough to be part of the Purple Hand Gang. And Peter loses his mind because for once, Henry is the one holding the status. He's the one deciding who's in and who's out. Peter clearly can't accept that, so Peter gets motivated. He wants revenge, but more than that, he wants proof. Proof that he can play Henry's game too.
I can do bad things, Henry, and guess who I can do them to?
For the better or worse, that's what comparison does to a child. It creates a perfect child who starts realizing the role comes with power. Because Peter can do something sneaky and still look innocent doing it. Meanwhile, Henry can tell the truth and still sound guilty. You already saw that in Perfect Peter's Horrid Day, where Peter can literally admit he did it, and the family still finds a way to make it Henry's fault. So imagine how easy it is for Peter to enjoy that advantage once he understands it. And that's the real warning here. Comparison doesn't just create one bad kid and one good kid, it creates two or more roles that start feeding each other. And once those roles are made permanent at home, they don't stay at home. Because unfortunately, the next place that loves labels, loves shortcuts, and loves deciding who you are before you speak is school. Because if you're Henry, you would hope school should be the place where you get a fresh start. Different rules, different rooms, and maybe different adults who will treat you like a normal kid for once. But Horrid Henry doesn't even get that. What it shows over and over is that once a kid gets a bad reputation, it spreads faster than you think. Take Horrid Henry goes on strike, for example. Henry's in class and Miss Battleaxe asks a question, and Henry doesn't put up his hand because he literally just doesn't know the answer.
Henry? Yes, miss? I notice you didn't have your hand up.
I mean, her logic is basically, you didn't put your hand up when I expected you to, so now you're in trouble? What was that about? That's such a small thing, but it says everything about what school is doing here. Henry even gets punished because his teacher is failing to teach him properly. How crazy is that? I'm surprised I'm not noticing back then how often the school system in this show is less about learning and more about compliance. Like the classroom is an obedience factory, and Henry's the kid who keeps breaking the machine just by existing. Then you've got episodes like Horrid Henry and the Boodle Poodle. The setup is almost funny because it's so petty. Henry says he thinks Boodle Poodles are weird, and the teacher basically takes it personally and slaps him with a double detention.
I happen to think that Boodle Poodles is one of the best TV shows in the whole wide world. So that's a double detention for you, Henry.
Like, think about what that tells a kid. Your opinion annoyed me, so now you pay for it? And again, as a kid you watch that and go, haha, Henry got in trouble for a stupid reason. But as an adult, you watch that and go, what the hell is wrong with this school? I mean, even one time Henry gets detention for saying hi.
Thank you, kind sir.
What did you say?
Well, I said thank you, kind sir.
Right, that's it, you horrid boy. Detention!
Henry is just catching stray bullets left, right, and center at this point. And the part that stings is Henry doesn't even argue. He just goes. The boy already knows how this ends, but now to put that next to everything we've already talked about, so where exactly is Henry supposed to go to be seen as just a kid? We're not even watching a kid learning his lessons episode by episode. We're just watching all these adults abusing a kid without ease. Looking back, Horrid Henry ends up showing us a reality that adults don't really like to admit. How easy it is for a whole environment, family, schools, even other kids, to quietly point at a problem child and then spend years punishing him for being exactly what they already decided he was. The warning Henry gave us is how a whole environment can slowly turn toxic for everyone, just because people stop caring in small ways over and over until it becomes normal. If you're a parent, you need to be careful on how fast a label can replace curiosity. How easy it is to start parenting the version of your kid you expect, instead of the kid who's actually standing in front of you that day. If you're a teacher, you need a good eye to not mistake compliance for learning. and mistaking a reputation for a personality until one child becomes a role the classroom has already agreed on. And if you were the Henry in your own life, then the warning is even simpler. And honestly, more painful. When no one expects you to get better, the bravest thing you can do is still try. Because that's how you break the loop. Just like Henry. Now you won't see Horrid Henry the same way again. And probably, you won't see Mom the same way either. Because for the next video, I'm zooming in on some of her worst moments. Every time Horrid Henry's mom was a psycho in Horrid Henry. Let's see how much ridiculous stuff she has done over the years, and what it says about the loop we've been talking about this whole time. I'll see you next time.